Good morning, Greta. Good morning, young lady.
Good morning.
Served as an urban planner for many, many years. I'm a businesswoman, 73 years old. Number one, oil from Canada, the Keystone going down to the Gulf. Why in the world are we going down to the Gulf with that oil when one of the largest refineries in the United States is right here in Lamont, Illinois? 70% of their refinery is shut down because of lack of oil. That's number one. Number two, taxes. How about an import tax that would equalize $20 an hour American dollars, like China, 37% on all their exports. The other countries anywhere from 23 to 30%. That money coming in on their imports would pay a lot of bills, okay? And once that happens, you'll see how many jobs will be coming back here that our big corporations are overseas.
Well, first of all, what you said about the pipeline, I think, is another reason why you shouldn't attach the pipeline for a discussion right now when we're facing a deadline, and you shouldn't hold unemployment insurance and the payroll tax extension hostage to the pipeline. There needs to be further environmental review. So I would agree with the caller. We need to look at that.
And on her last comments, any thoughts?
On her last comments?
On her last comments, I'm blanking as well. If we think of it, we'll come back.
Okay.
Mike, a Republican in Fleming Island, Florida.
Hi, Mike.
Good morning. You know, this argument of adding this on to this bill, we need jobs.
Exactly.
And we need jobs. There's been 3 EPA studies on this over 5 years. All 3 EPA studies have passed this. They pass it on with recommendations each time to the president to sign it. So this stuff that we need more EPA studies is absolutely ludicrous, number one. Number two is, if we take 20,000 people, which is the minimum that will be hired to do this pipeline, we take 20,000 people off the extended benefits that you say must be passed. Number three is, you say that the most important thing is to get this unemployment passed and the Social Security thing. Now, you didn't count out the fact that by taking the money, instead of reducing my income tax, you're taking it out of my payroll tax, which means it's taking out of my Social Security, which means when I retire, I get less in return. People don't understand that. You're taking it out of individual buckets.
Right.
We'll have less to retire, so this has to stop. We need.
All right, let's get a response on that point.
Sure. Well, let me respond to a couple of things, because the caller mentioned that what we need is jobs, and I absolutely agree with him. And frankly, we've had 320 days of Congress, and the Republicans, in my opinion, have put forward nothing in terms of jobs. The president put forward a comprehensive plan for jobs, and that's something that has not even passed or even been brought up in a serious way, in a comprehensive way within the House. When he talked about the jobs and the need for the pipeline, there's a variety of different ways that we can bring jobs. We need to have more environmental review on the pipeline. When he was talking about the other issues, I think that there's other ways for us to deal with it. So the payroll tax, for example, his concern about the money coming out of Social Security, well, both sides of the aisle have ways to pay for that, so it's not going to come out of Social Security. We would pay for it. For example, the Democrats are proposing paying for it with a surtax on incomes for people who have more than $1 million. So he's right. If it wasn't paid for, both sides are proposing paying for it.
Is there a compromise between the two sides on this payroll tax cut extension?
I think that there should be a compromise, but I think as long as the Republicans are going to add on all of the policy issues that have absolutely nothing to do with either the payroll tax extension or unemployment insurance, there isn't going to be a compromise.
Could you vote for an extension of the payroll tax holiday if it was paid for with spending cuts and did not include this other language?
Well, I do think that there's a variety of spending cuts that could be acceptable. Remember when the super committee was meeting, you remember that there were cuts that both sides of the aisle agreed on. And so I think that there would be ways to pay for it that wouldn't require us having all of these policy riders.
And also not include a tax on those that make more than $1 million?
I think that that's possible.
Clifton's next, Democrat in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Yes. My comments are, in my opinion, the only reason the Republican wants to add this pipeline owners because they're looking at their pockets, looking for a way to line their pockets, and they're not concerned about the people. Just consider how much time they spent trying to keep from signing this bill. They spent all this time trying to keep them sign the bill. The president has come up with have put legislation before them. They refused to sign it. All of a sudden now, they decide they want to sign.
All right. Those are Clifton's comments.
Well, and I actually think the reason why they're raising the pipeline is because they're trying to create a wedge between the president and the environmental community. There is support on both sides of the aisle for the pipeline. The differences are in when and whether or not more extensive environmental review is needed. So I think it's a wedge issue, frankly.
Jim has this tweet for you. Should unemployment be extended forever? Maybe 10 years, 20 years. Where does it end? More unemployment is a disincentive to find a job.
Well, I just think that that's a false argument. I don't know people on unemployment who enjoy being on unemployment. If people realize how much money unemployment is, that helps keep people from being off the streets, frankly. It's very hard to support yourself on a check like that. And I really think that it's very disingenuous to say that for somebody to be on an unemployment, it's a disincentive for them to work. People want jobs. People have dignity. Dignity comes with work.
Roger's next. He's a Republican in Gastonia, North Carolina. You're on the air with Congressman Karen Bass, Democrat of California.
Hey, Karen.
Hello.
I disagree with your last comment. I'm down on the front lines, and there are a number of people that really want to work and would take any job. There's also an underclass that we have developed in this country that have to have the government to live and do not go out and try to find a job. I think that, when you talk about the medical that you get, the housing that you get, the food stamps, the unemployment, and all these different things, it really is a disincentive to work. And we do need to have a policy that says you have to move yourself forward in life or you cannot continue to suck off the government. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that everybody is in one basket, and they're really not. You have
No, and there are always exceptions to the rule, but there is a general view that people who are on unemployment are barely making it. If you add unemployment, food stamps, I don't know what housing you're talking about because, no one has free rent. People want to get back to work and want to live a decent lifestyle. Now, having said that, there are people that are completely discouraged from working, that believe that they're not going to find a job again. And then there's always an element who doesn't want to work. But that is not the general characteristic. We are in an economic crisis, and we have very high unemployment rates. If we were in a situation where the economy was booming, and you're talking about people who don't want to find a job, that's one issue. But that's not what we're dealing with right now. We're trying to come out of this economic crisis. It's been slow for the unemployment rates to drop. And I think we need to do everything we can right now to help folks. And then when you're talking about stimulating the economy, when you give someone food stamps and an unemployment check, that goes directly back into the economy.